Well, first, thank you so much to our MC for that very kind introduction. I would like to thank the conference committee for arranging this great gathering. It's such a pleasure to be here in your presence, and what a gathering! So many hearts and souls here to share in these talks, praising His Holiness Baha'u'llah, talking on these principles of the faith. So wonderful to be in this gathering, exciting the hearts, praising His Holiness Baha'u'llah. Dear friends, when the conference committee contacted me and said, Ehsan, what topic would you like to share with the friends in this conference? After a little thought, I said, I would like to talk about the cornerstone of the foundation of all Baha'i activity. And so this, dear friends, will be my topic that I will be addressing with you tonight. The cornerstone of the foundation of all Baha'i activity. So, dear friends, does anyone in this great audience know what the cornerstone of the foundation of all Baha'i activity is? Anyone? Service. I hear service. Shout it out loud. That is such a wonderful aspect. And as we know, Abdul Baha means servant of His Holiness Baha'u'llah. Servant, service, most wonderful aspect. But no, dear friends, service, no matter how important it is not the cornerstone of the foundation of all Baha'i activity. So, any other guesses, dear friends? Deepening, I hear deepening. Deepening, as we know, first and foremost, we must teach ourselves, deepen ourselves. How important is that is? But is deepening the cornerstone of the foundation of all Baha'i activity? No, that is not it either. Anyone else? I hear teaching. Yes, excellent. Who said that? Yes, very good, very, very good. Good job. That's right. Teaching the cause. Teaching the cause. Teaching the cause, dear friends, is the cornerstone of the foundation of all Baha'i activity. And listen to the words, cornerstone. It is the stone that holds the whole structure together. A foundation. It's at the very base, holds the whole structure together. So it's the cornerstone of the foundation. Amazing. This is what holds the entire, all Baha'i activity together should be what? Teaching the cause. And as His Holiness Abdul Baha has categorically proclaimed in his will and testament, the guidance of the nations and peoples of the world is the most important of all things. And of all the gifts of God, the greatest is the gift of teaching. And the beloved guardian, Shaykh Effendi, talking on this great subject of teaching, what does he say? He calls it the most essential, the most urgent of all our obligations, and what must be the dominating passion of our life. Dominating passion of our life. How nothing else is more important, the guardian says, the most urgent of all our obligations. Dominating passion of our life. And what should we do? We should follow the examples of the apostles of Christ, who, as testified by His Holiness Abdul Baha, what did they do? They forgot themselves and all earthly things, forsook all their cares and belongings, purged themselves of self and passion, till at last they made the world another world, illumined the surface of the earth, and even to the last hour proved self-sacrificing in the pathway of that beloved one of God. Let them that are men of action follow in their footsteps. So beautiful. Dear friends, I am so excited. Today we're going to be talking on a subject that I so dearly love. teaching the cause. So I've prepared some extracts that we will be going through, and then I am so excited. Today we'll be sharing with you another wonderful story. And this is the story of one who is the greatest of all teachers. Does anyone know who I'm going to be talking about? Yes, I love it. Again, this wonderful soul. Yes, I will be speaking about Martha Root. So I will be giving you a full account of the story of the life of Martha Root. Okay? So, let us get into some of these beautiful extracts. I'll first start with extracts from the writings of His Holiness Baha'u'llah, then Abdul Baha, then the Beloved Guardian. Okay? So, let us get into them, and I will be sharing with you thoughts as we go through these extracts. So His Holiness Baha'u'llah, from a tablet translated from the Persian, states, "O friends, you must all be so ablaze in this day with the fire of the love of God, that the heat thereof may be manifest in all your veins, your limbs and members of your body, and the peoples of the world may be ignited by this heat and turn to the horizon of the beloved." So awesome. Dear friends, must be so ablaze in this day with the fire of the love of God. As we know, fire has that potential to energize and move molecules faster and faster and faster and faster. And we can see this in the world of matter, where as you turn on the stove to heat up water, and we see initially just a few little bubbles, and then what happens? The bubbles of water start moving and moving and moving and moving faster and faster and faster until it's an aggressive boil of water, until eventually the water becomes so energized and so excited and so full of life that it turns into a gas. This is, dear friends, this is what we should become. To move from the stages of matter, from the hard rock, to the liquid stage, where our energy and atoms are so infused and imbued with the love of God. We move to the liquid, and then with such excitement we jump into the next stage of gas, and we can traverse the worlds and traverse all creation and proclaim His name. This is the fire of the love of God. The heat thereof may manifest in all your veins, your limbs, your members of your body, that it becomes transient, and anyone that comes across your presence will feel it. This is so exciting, dear friends. Again, His Holiness Baha'u'llah, Tablets of Baha'u'llah revealed after Kitab Aqdas. This is in page 143. Baha'u'llah says, "Teach thou the cause of God with an utterance which will cause the bushes to be enkindled, and the call, verily there is no God but me, the Almighty, the unconstrained, to be raised therefrom. Say, human utterance is an essence which aspireth to exert its influence, and needeth moderation. As to its influence, this is conditional upon refinement, which in turn is dependent upon hearts which are detached and pure. As to its moderation, this hath to be combined with tact and wisdom, as prescribed in the Holy Scriptures and tablets." So, dear friends, again, His Holiness Baha'u'llah using this analogy of fire, with an utterance which will cause the bushes to be enkindled. Your tongue is a flame of fire when the heart is burning with the love of Baha'u'llah. He says, your tongue, your utterance will cause the bushes to be enkindled. But also, dear friends, he says, human utterance is an essence which aspireth to exert its influence and needeth moderation. Very important, moderation. As to its influence, this is conditional upon refinement. So you have to refine your tongue. And how do you do this, dear friends? By practice. You have to study, you have to deepen, you have to immerse yourself in the ocean of my words. You have to study the writings and practice giving talks on the faith so that tongue will easily utter the words. Refinement, which in turn is dependent upon hearts, which are, what? Very important, detached and pure. So your heart has to be detached from the material things of this world, detached and pure. As to its moderation, this hath to be combined with what? Tact and wisdom. So when presenting the faith, you have to use tact and wisdom. Excellent. So wonderful. Again, now let us read from Baha'u'llah. This is from Gleanings from the Writings of Baha'u'llah, page 8. Now, this is so incredible. He says the whole duty of man in this day. So hundreds and thousands of years, people have been searching. What is the purpose of our role in this world? What is the purpose of life? Here, Baha'u'llah very clearly, categorically states, the whole duty of man in this day is to attain that share of the flood of grace which God poureth forth for him. So to attain that share of the flood of grace which God poureth forth for him. Let none therefore consider the largeness or smallness of the receptacle. The portion of some might lie in the palm of a man's hand. The portion of others might fill a cup, and of others even a gallon measure. So the whole purpose, the whole duty of man in this day is to attain that share of the flood of grace which God poureth forth for him. And Baha'u'llah again, page 289. What does he say? He says, consort with all men. Consort means gather in a love, in a friendship. Consort with all men, O people of Baha. In what? In a spirit of friendliness and fellowship. He says, if ye be aware of a certain truth, if ye possess a jewel, and dear friends, you do possess this jewel, the jewel of the cause of Baha'u'llah. He says, if ye possess a jewel of which others are deprived, share it with them in a language of utmost kindliness and goodwill. So kindliness and goodwill, and prior we read, we should present it with tact and wisdom also. And then he says also, if it be accepted, if it fulfill its purpose. How wonderful. If it be accepted, if it fulfill its purpose, your object is attained. How great. But what happens if anyone should refuse it? Leave him unto himself and beseech God to guide him. Now, very important, dear friends, beware lest ye deal unkindly with him. Now here, dear friends, is a quote that we hear often in our great Ruhi books. It says, a kindly tongue is the lodestone of the hearts of men. A kindly tongue is the lodestone of the hearts of men. Lodestone, what is that, dear friends? Anyone know what a lodestone is? That's correct. Yes, a magnet. A kindly tongue is the lodestone of the hearts of men. It is the bread of the Spirit. It clotheth the words with meaning. It is the fountain of the light of wisdom and understanding. So, dear friends, your tongue should be kind. How should we consort with people? Friendliness and fellowship. How should our language be? Utmost kindness and goodwill. Our heart should be imbued with love to all who cross our path. And again, this beautiful analogy of fire, Baha'u'llah again, cited by the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi in his great letter, December 25th, 1938, entitled The Advent of Divine Justice, and this is on page 51. Baha'u'llah states, if he be kindled with the fire of his love, kindled, his heart burning with the fire of his love, what happens? If he foregoeth all created things, the words he uttereth shall set on fire them that hear him. So, if his heart is burning with the love of Baha'u'llah, and if he forgoeth all created things, meaning he's detached from all created things, the words he uttereth shall set on fire them that hear him. Now, again, this is from Baha'u'llah, cited by the beloved guardian in the Advent of Divine Justice, page 24. Baha'u'llah states, "Say, O people of God, that which can ensure the victory of him who is the eternal truth. His hosts and helpers on earth have been set down in the sacred books and scriptures, and are as clear and manifest as the sun." Now listen, dear friends, this is so important. These are the requisites for successful teaching. So let's hear them, dear friends. So, these hosts are such righteous deeds, such conduct and character as are acceptable in his sight. Whoso ariseth in this day to aid our cause, and summoneth to his assistance the hosts of what, dear friends? A praiseworthy character, upright conduct. The influence from such an action will most certainly be diffused throughout the whole world. So, dear friends, as we've been hearing these great talks, in a past talk I gave a talk on transformation of character. Transformation of character. So here the beloved guardian is talking about how we should have this great conduct, our character, this rectitude of conduct. It says, the hosts of a praiseworthy conduct, upright conduct, the influence of this conduct, the influence of this action. What will it do? It will be most certainly diffused throughout the whole world. Amazing! I love it. So, dear friends, let us move to His Holiness Abdul Baha and hear from him and his extracts. So, in the great mandate, as the beloved guardian says, for all proclamation, the tablets of the divine plan. Here, tablets of the divine plan, page 34, His Holiness Abdul Baha states, now is the time for you to divest yourselves of the garment of attachment to this world that perisheth, to be wholly severed from the physical world, become heavenly angels, and travel to these countries. This is Abdul Baha. He says, now is the time for you to do what? Divest yourselves. What does divest yourselves mean? Take off, remove. Divest yourselves of what? The garment of attachment. It's as though we have this clothing of attachment to all the material things in this world. As the beloved guardian, Advent of Divine Justice says, we are drowning in a sea of materialism. We need to divest ourselves of this garment of attachment to this world that perisheth, to be wholly severed from the physical world, become what? Heavenly angels, and travel to these countries. So this is Tablets of the Divine Plan. And again in Tablets of Divine Plan, this time page 38 to 39. With hearts overflowing with the love of God. So this is an incredible extract. This is where the beloved Abdul Baha now using the hearts, the tongues, the eyes. So pay attention to this one, dear friends. With your hearts overflowing with the love of God. Your tongues, with tongues commemorating the mention of God. And what? With your eyes turned to the kingdom of God. Hearts overflowing with the love of God. Tongues commemorating the mention of God. With eyes turned to the kingdom of God. What must we do? They must deliver the glad tidings of the manifestation of the Lord of hosts to all the people. They must deliver the glad tidings of the manifestation of the Lord of hosts to all the people. Know ye of a certainty that whatever gathering ye enter, The waves of the Holy Spirit are surging over it, and the heavenly grace of the blessed beauty encompasseth that gathering. How amazing. I love it. I'm filled with excitement, dear friends. I don't know if you can feel this. Dear friends, the entire concourse on high, the Lord of hosts, they are ready. Waves of the Holy Spirit are surging over us. The heavenly grace of the blessed beauty encompasseth that gathering. Our hearts should be overflowing with the love of God. Our tongues, this little thing in our mouth, should be commemorating the mention of God. And our eyes should be constantly turned towards the kingdom of God. Now, dear friends, whenever we open our mouth, turn to talk and proclaim His message, we should do it with purity of motive. Purity of motive. And here, His Holiness Abdul Baha, Tablets of the Divine Plan, page 51. What does he say? The aim is this. The intention of the teacher must be pure. What does he say? The aim is this. The intention of the teacher must be pure. His heart independent, his spirit attracted, his thought at peace, his resolution firm, his magnanimity exalted, and in the love of God, a shining torch. I love this. A shining torch. Should he become as such, his sanctified breath will even affect the rock. Otherwise, there will be no result whatsoever. As long as a soul is not perfected, how can he efface the defects of others, unless he is detached from aught else save God? How can he teach severance to others? So we're talking about detachment here, right? We're talking about purity of motive here. His heart independent, his spirit attracted, his thought at peace, his resolution firm, his magnanimity exalted, and what? His love of God should become a shining torch. Right, dear friends? Excellent. Now let us go to Tablets of Abdul Baha Abbas, Volume 3, and we find this, dear friends, in pages 619 to 620. Here Abdul Baha states, if thou wishest to guide the souls, which I urge every one of you to do. So as we know, it is the cornerstone of the foundation of all Baha'i activity. It is the greatest of all gifts of God. It's the greatest of all gift of teaching. So dear friends, here Abdul Baha says, if thou wishest to guide the souls. So he's giving you a choice. It's not, even though it's a duty, he's saying, if thou wishest to guide the souls, it is incumbent on thee to be firm, to be good, and to be imbued with praiseworthy attributes and divine qualities under all circumstances. Be a sign of love, a manifestation of mercy, a fountain of tenderness, kind-hearted, good to all, and gentle to the servants of God, and especially to those who bear relation to thee, both men and women. Bear every ordeal that befalleth thee from the people, and confront them not save with kindness, with great love and good wishes. So, dear friends, so as we know, it says, it is incumbent on thee to be what? Firm. Firm in the cause. Immovable as mountains, as the beloved guardian says. Immovable as mountains. Incumbent on thee to be firm, to be good, and to be imbued. Imbued means it enters into every particle. It is you. It animates every aspect of your life. It enters into your every fiber of you, imbued with praiseworthy attributes and divine qualities under all circumstances. It says, be a sign of love. A sign of love, dear friends. Are you signs of love? Or are you signs of, sometimes I love people, but sometimes I get pretty angry and I hate them, especially in traffic. Be a sign of love, a manifestation of mercy, a fountain of tenderness, kind-hearted, good to all. That is so hard, right, dear friends? Good to all, and gentle to the servants of God, and especially to those who bear relation to thee, both men and women. Then he says, bear every ordeal that befalleth thee from the people. And then this is very interesting. He says, and confront them not save with kindness. So it's not just kindness, but with what? With great love and good wishes. So sure, we talk about kindliness, but here he says, how should we teach? He says, if thou wishest to guide the soul, this is how it says. He says, with great love and good wishes. And again, dear friends, we find this extract, selections from the writings of Abdu'l-Baha. And this is on page 270. The teacher, when teaching, must be himself fully enkindled. And again, dear friends, we find this analogy of fire. And how we read earlier from his extracts from His Holiness Baha'u'llah, and this is from Abdu'l-Baha, enkindled, in flame, burning all the idle fancies and vain imaginings that are within our own hearts, but to also burn those veils that separate the hearts of individuals from the love of Baha'u'llah that we have, that are being presented to them. So we should be so on fire that the love of Baha'u'llah animates us, gives us life. So he says must be himself fully enkindled. What? So that his utterance, like unto a flame of fire, may exert influence and consume the veil of self and passion. Self and passion. These are the obstacles between hearts to his Creator. He must also be utterly humble. Okay? Utterly humble and lowly, so that others may be edified and be totally self-effaced and evanescent, so that he may teach with the melody of the concourse on high. Otherwise, his teaching will have no effect. So how we present the faith? We should be utterly humble and lowly, so that others may be edified and be totally self-effaced and evanescent, so that he may teach with the melody of the concourse on high. I love it. This is how to present the faith. How many places, I have so many wonderful extracts I'm going to share with you, dear friends, on how to present this faith. And again from Abdu'l-Baha, selections from the writings of Abdu'l-Baha. Urge each one of you to read, study, and how to learn to teach. And this is from His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha, page 267 to 268. What does Abdu'l-Baha say? He says, when the friends do not endeavor to spread the message. Oh, no. This is a quote that is very scary, dear friends. And there's others that are. When the friends do not endeavor to spread the message. Pay attention to this, dear friends. This is one of our obligations. What does he say? When the friends do not endeavor to spread the message, what happens? They fail to remember God befittingly and will not witness the tokens of assistance and confirmation from the Abha kingdom, nor comprehend the divine mysteries. However, dear friends, when the tongue of the teacher is engaged in teaching, he will naturally himself be stimulated, will become a magnet, attracting the divine aid and bounty of the kingdom, and will be like unto the bird at the hour of dawn, which itself becomes exhilarated by its own singing, its warbling, and its melody. Wow. Dear friends, when I first started this quote where it says, when the friends do not endeavor to spread the message, they fail to remember God befittingly, and will not witness the tokens of assistance and confirmation. They become cut off. Cut off, dear friends. This cannot be overstressed. You fail to teach, you fail to proclaim, you fail to magnify His name, you become cut off. It's as though you are raising an umbrella high into the sky, and all the vernal showers that are being poured over the whole world, the confirmations of His Holiness Baha'u'llah, you are saying, no, I don't need that. I don't need to magnify His name. I'm okay. You raise this umbrella and the showers are pouring everywhere except on you. Because you are being cut off. You have this individual choice. You are not a robot, but you are raising this umbrella and you're saying, no, this is not important. So what happens? He says, we will not witness the tokens of assistance. Will not witness the tokens of assistance and confirmation from the Apal kingdom. And what else? We will not comprehend the divine mysteries. But what excitingly it says, but however, when the tongue of the teacher is engaged in teaching, he will naturally himself be stimulated. He will become a magnet, dear friends. Remember we talked about how this lodestone and the kindness attracts the hearts of men. You yourself will become this magnet, attracting the divine aid and bounty of the kingdom of God. And we will be like unto this bird. And we hear these birds in the morning, tweet, 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 tweet. And the birds are calling out to their love, to all creation, and saying, and excited and jubilant, that the hour of dawn is emerging. And you will be like unto that bird at the hour of dawn, which itself becometh exhilarated by its own singing. And the heart of the bird tweets louder and louder and more excited and more happy. Isn't this lovely? I love it. This analogies that His Holiness Abdul Baha uses. Let us move, dear friends, to again selections from the writings of Abdul Baha, page 269. What does he say? He says, speak therefore, speak out with great courage at every meeting. Dear friends, do you have courage? Do you speak with great courage in meetings? Yes, this is how he says, speak with great courage at every meeting. When you are about to begin your address, this is what he says. I'm giving this address, this is exactly what I did. When you are about to begin your address, turn first to Baha'u'llah and ask for the confirmations of the Holy Spirit. Then open your lips and say whatever is suggested to your heart. This, however, with the utmost courage, dignity, and conviction. So first turn your heart to His Holiness Baha'u'llah and ask for the confirmations of the Holy Spirit. Then open your lips and say whatever is suggested to your heart. I love it. So dear friends, this is the prescription per se, the prescription of how to teach that I am sharing with you. And as we know, teaching the cause is the cornerstone of the foundation of all Baha'i activity. And it should always be there. And this should be the pattern of how we live our life. Now, dear friends, let us move to the beloved guardian. Some extracts from the beloved guardian. The beloved guardian in a letter dated 19th December 1923. And this was written by Shoghi Effendi to the Baha'is of the East, and it's been translated from the Persian. This is what he says. It's very interesting. He says, first and foremost, one should use every possible means to purge one's heart and motives. Use every possible means. Dear friends, are we purging our hearts and motives? Are we doing this? This is what he says. First and foremost. So first, you got to do this. First and foremost. Foremost means most importantly. First and foremost, one should use every possible means to purge one's heart. Purge means cleanse. Completely cleanse one's heart and your motives. Remember, we talked about purity of motives earlier. And then he says, otherwise, engaging in any form of enterprise would be what? Futile. If you do not purge or cleanse your heart and your motives, engaging in any form of enterprise, any form of teaching, would be futile. It is also essential. Essential means it is absolutely required to abstain from hypocrisy and blind imitation, inasmuch as their foul odor is soon detected by every man of understanding and wisdom. Moreover, the friends must observe the specific times for the remembrance of God, meditation, devotion, and prayer, as it is highly unlikely, nay, impossible, for any enterprise to prosper and develop when deprived of divine bestowals and confirmation. One can hardly imagine what a great influence genuine love, truthfulness, and purity of motives exert on the souls of men. But these traits cannot be acquired by any believer unless he makes a daily effort to gain them. Daily prayer, daily meditation, daily devotion, daily prayer. So this is turning your hearts to Baha'u'llah. If we do not, as we said, how can we say one can hardly imagine what a great influence would happen. It is primarily through the potency of noble deeds and character. So noble deeds and character, rather than by the power of exposition and proofs, that the friends of God should demonstrate to the world that what has been promised by God is bound to happen, that it is already taking place, and that the divine glad tidings are clear, evident, and complete. So, dear friends, here the beloved guardian is saying we have to purge our heart, purge our motives, so that our motives are pure, our heart is pure. And then also he says that we have to make sure that we have to abstain from hypocrisy and blind imitation. And he also states that we have to make sure to do our obligatory prayers. That's what he says, the prescribed times, the specific times for the remembrance of God. Our obligatory prayers. Our meditation, reciting the verses every morning and evening, devotion, prayer. And he says it's highly unlikely. He even says it's impossible. Impossible, dear friends. This is Shaykh Effendi, sign of God on earth. Impossible for any enterprise to prosper and develop when deprived of divine bestowals and confirmation. So if you fail in your connection to your Lord, if you fail to recite the verses every morning and evening, if you fail to recite your obligatory prayer, if you fail to purge one's heart and purity of motives, what happens? He says it's highly unlikely, it's impossible for any enterprise. Enterprise means teaching the cause. Well, what happened? We'll be able to prosper and develop. Shaykh Effendi. It says primarily through the potency of noble deeds and character. Noble deeds, character. This is how we should affect this transformation of character in our heart. Through a transformation of our character, through goodly works and goodly deeds. Now, dear friends, I'm going to read this extract. This is from the beloved guardian. This one is in Advent of Divine Justice, page 51 to 52. And the reason I'm reading this nice long extract is because it's very, very interesting. How the beloved guardian talks here, he says how we should approach teaching. And he uses I think of this extract as we should be scientific in our approach to teaching. So let us go through it. Having on his own initiative and undaunted by any hindrances with which either friend or foe may unwittingly or deliberately obstruct his path, resolved to arise and respond to the call of teaching, let him carefully consider every avenue of approach which he might utilize in his teaching. In his personal attempts to capture the attention, maintain the interest, and deepen the faith of those whom he seeks to bring into the fold of his faith. Let him survey the possibilities which the particular circumstances in which he lives offer him, evaluate their advantages, and proceed intelligently and systematically to utilize them for the achievements of the object he has in mind. Let him also attempt to devise such methods as association with clubs, exhibitions, and societies, lectures on subjects akin to the teachings and ideals of his cause, such as temperance, morality, social welfare, religious and racial tolerance, economic cooperation, Islam and comparative religion, or participation in social, cultural, humanitarian, charitable, and educational organizations and enterprises, which, while safeguarding the integrity of his faith, will open up to him a multitude of ways and means whereby he can enlist successively the sympathy, the support, and ultimately the allegiance of those with whom he comes in contact. So this is part of this paragraph in Advent of Divine Justice. And the approach is, let him survey the possibilities. Survey the possibilities. Are we doing that? Before we go teaching, are we surveying all the possibilities to teach this great cause? So let him survey the possibilities which the particular circumstances in which he lives offers him. Then what should we do? Evaluate their advantages. So which one can we do? Which one is the greatest? Which one is the most effective? Which one can we be able to have great success in teaching? Evaluate their advantages. And then what? Proceed intelligently and systematically. You see how I said this is scientific in its approach? So first, surveying all the possibilities, which the particular circumstances in which he lives offer him. Evaluate their advantages. Then proceed intelligently and systematically. This is how we should teach the cause. And the beloved guardian in this extract gives so many ideas of places and opportunities to present the cause in that extract, in Advent of Divine Justice. We move on, dear friends. I love this extract from the beloved guardian. This is Citadel of Faith, page 148. Here, the beloved guardian uses these 4 adverbs: tactfully, lovingly, prayerfully, and persistently. So let us read this extract. This is page 148. He says the individual alone must assess its character, consult his conscience, prayerfully consider all its aspects, manfully struggle against the natural inertia that weighs him down in his effort to arise, shed heroically and irrevocably the trivial and superfluous attachments which hold him back, empty himself of every thought that may tend to obstruct his path, mix in obedience to the counsels of the author of his faith, and in imitation of the one who is its true exemplar with men and women in all walks of life, seek to touch their hearts through the distinction which characterizes his thoughts, his words, and his acts, and win them over tactfully, lovingly, prayerfully, and persistently to the faith he himself has espoused. So, dear friends, in this one extract that we find in Citadel of Faith, page 148, the beloved guardian Shaykh Effendi clearly states how we should conquer ourselves. The individual alone must assess its character. You have to know thyself. Bring thyself to account each day. So this is bringing ourselves to account. Know thyself. He says, consult his conscience. You have to know yourself and prayerfully consider all its aspects. You have to know everything about yourself. And then what? Manfully struggle. Okay, this is struggle. There's a term. It's the greater jihad, the inner war, the conflict within us to overcome this our inner ego, the lower self, the base self, to conquer ourselves against this natural inertia. I love this too. The natural inertia. Inertia, just this grudgingly slow, the slowness, anything that is holding us back from, and that weighs him down in his effort to arise and shed heroically and irrevocably the trivial and superfluous attachments which hold him back. So we have to shed this garment of slothfulness, this garment of inertia, this garment of detachment, and the garment of attachment to all these things of this world. And then, what does it say? Heroically and irrevocably that we should arise and empty ourselves of every thought that may tend to obstruct our path. And how should we present this faith, love? We should have, it says here, we should present it with distinction, which characterizes his thoughts, his words, and his acts. Distinction, this is how we should present it, through with our words, our acts, and our thoughts. Distinct. And how his words and his acts, and win them over tactfully. We should watch what we say. Lovingly. Our hearts should be that burning fire, touching all hearts. Love. Prayerfully. We should always remember to turn our hearts to Baha'u'llah. Having that connection, and we just read in the passage earlier. If it says impossible, it would be impossible for any enterprise to achieve the success if we do not turn to him. Prayerfully and persistently. Keep at it, dear friends, persistently. These are the four adverbs the beloved guardian chose in this extract. You know, I'm sharing with you where these are. Citadel of Faith, page 148. So go read them for yourselves. Study these. Let us turn to another one. I love this. I hope you guys are not getting tired. Okay, so where are we? This is from a letter dated 31st of March, 1932, written on behalf of the beloved guardian to an individual believer. He says, "Perhaps the reason why you have not accomplished so much in the field of teaching is the extent you looked upon your own weaknesses and inabilities to spread the message." Dear friends, do we do that? Do we constantly reflect on our inabilities, our weaknesses? Of course we do. Of course we do. And this is why the beloved guardian says, why we have not accomplished so much in the field of teaching. He carries on, he says, Baha'u'llah and the Master have both urged us repeatedly to disregard our own handicaps and lay our whole reliance upon God. He will come to our help if we only arise and become an active channel for God's grace. Do you think it is the teachers who make converts and change human hearts? No, surely not. They are only pure souls who take the first step and then let the Spirit of Baha'u'llah move them and make use of them. If any one of them should even for a second consider his achievements as due to his own capacities, his work is ended and his fall starts. This is in fact the reason why so many competent souls have, after wonderful services, suddenly found themselves absolutely impotent and perhaps thrown aside by the spirit of the cause as useless souls. The criterion is the extent to which we are ready to have the will of God operate through us. Stop being conscious of your frailties. Therefore, have a perfect reliance upon God. Let your heart burn with the desire to serve His mission and proclaim His call, and you will observe how eloquence and the power to change human hearts will come as a matter of course. Shoghi Effendi will surely pray for your success if you should arise and start to teach. In fact, the mere act of arising will win for you God's help and blessings. So here in this extract we read, we shouldn't ever, ever, ever turn towards our own selves in the sense of focusing on our own weaknesses and frailties. This is why he says, why we have not accomplished so much in the field of teaching. We're constantly reflecting on our own weaknesses and inabilities. Oh, I'm not a good speaker. Oh, I don't know much. I don't know what to say. All of these things, we're constantly focusing on weaknesses, inabilities. But we should have our full reliance, our whole reliance upon God. He will come to our help if we only arise and become an active channel for God's grace. I love it, dear friends. Very exciting. And again, the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, 3rd February 1937. Do not feel discouraged if your labors do not always yield an abundant fruitage. For a quick and rapidly won success is not always the best and the most lasting. The harder you strive to attain your goal, the greater will be the confirmations of Baha'u'llah, and the more certain you can feel to attain success. I love this. He says, be cheerful, cheerful, therefore, and exert yourself with full faith and confidence. For Baha'u'llah has promised his divine assistance to everyone who arises with a pure and detached heart to spread his holy word, even though he may be bereft of every human knowledge and capacity, and notwithstanding the forces of darkness and of opposition which may be arrayed against him. The goal is clear, the path safe and certain, and the assurances of Baha'u'llah as to the eventual success of our efforts quite emphatic. Let us keep firm and wholeheartedly carry on the great work which he has entrusted into our hands. So here, dear friends, the beloved guardian says, do not feel discouraged. Don't be upset, dear friends. If all your workings, your labors, your teaching the cause doesn't always yield great results. He says, quick things, rapidly won success is not always the best, and it doesn't always last. He says, the harder you strive. Remember those 4 adverbs we read earlier? Can anyone repeat them for me? This is found in Citadel of Faith. Yes, I hear tactfully, that's right. Anyone else? Okay, let's go over it one last time. Tactfully, lovingly, prayerfully, and this one is persistently. Tactfully, lovingly, prayerfully, persistently. So here in this extract, the beloved guardian is saying persistence. Just like a farmer. The farmer, if he casts his seeds into the soil of his farm, if he is quick to say, hey, seeds, why are you not growing? What's up? I already watered you a couple times. Why are you not growing? And then he starts poking them and poking them. Why is there no fruit? Come on, this fruit is supposed to emerge. Why are you not here? And if he, after a few pokes, he's like, gives up and he's like, there's no fruit. This is hopeless. I'm giving up on being a farmer. No, the beloved guardian, it says, persistently. And he says, be cheerful, have faith. He says, he says, therefore, and exert yourself with what? Full faith and confidence. And he says, Baha'u'llah has promised his divine assistance to everyone who arises with a pure and detached heart to spread his holy word. So our hearts again, pure and detached. You see these 2 words together, pure and detached, constantly. So this is, dear friends, the standard. Let us keep firm and wholeheartedly carry out this great work which he has entrusted in our hands. And we find that that extract was the 3rd of February 1937 to an individual believer. So let us go to another one. 14th of October 1943. written on behalf of the beloved guardian to an individual believer. What does he say? He says, not all of us are capable of serving in the same way. That's true. We cannot all serve in the same way. Not all of us are capable of serving in the same way. But the one way every Baha'i can spread the faith is by example. Example, dear friends. This moves the hearts of people far more deeply than words ever can. Let your deeds be your adorning, right? Exactly. So, the love we show others, the hospitality and understanding, the willingness to help them, these are the very best advertisements of the faith. How you act, dear friends, this moves the hearts of people far more deeply than words ever can. And again, the beloved guardian, this is a letter dated 18th June 1945 to the Baha'is of Dayton, Ohio. Isn't that exciting? Dayton, Ohio. They received this letter from the beloved guardian. He says, by all means, persevere. Persevere. Again, we read this. We should persevere. By all means, persevere. And associate in a friendly spirit with other groups of young people, particularly of a different race or minority nationality. For such association will demonstrate your complete conviction of the oneness of mankind and attract others to the faith, both young and old alike. And dear friends, this is so important. He says a spirit of prejudice-free, loving comradeship with others is what will open the eyes of people more than any amount of words. Combined with such deeds, you can teach the faith easily. And dear friends, as all of you are so keenly aware, in the beloved guardian's letter, December 25th, 1938, entitled Advent of Divine Justice, he speaks of 3 weapons, and these weapons, rectitude of conduct, a chaste and holy life, and freedom from racial prejudices. And here, the beloved guardian is addressing 2 of them directly here. He says, by all means persevere and associate in friendly spirit. And then he goes on. He says, demonstrate your complete conviction of the oneness of mankind. Hallmark of the faith, oneness of mankind. And attract others to the faith, both young and old. And then how did he say it? He says, a spirit of prejudice free. So this is the freedom from racial prejudices. Loving comradeship with others is what will open the eyes of people more than any amount. Then, so that's the one of the weapons that addressed in the Advent of Divine Justice. So the freedom from racial prejudices. Then the second one, combined with such deeds, you can teach the faith easily. So these deeds, the action, this rectitude of conduct that we're talking about, how to be able to transform our lives. So in this one extract, he addresses 2 of them, of the weapons for the success of all teaching enterprises that the beloved guardian addresses in Advent of Divine Justice, which I urge every one of you to pick up and study over and over. Okay, so we have a few more extracts from the beloved guardian, and then we will turn to the story of Martha Ruth. So, I hope every one of you are doing well and excited as I am. So this is from the beloved guardian, a letter dated the 20th of October 1949. He says, to find these receptive souls and teach them with tact and understanding. Again, dear friends, this is so important. Tact and understanding is the duty and privilege of every single Baha'i. Duty and privilege. Do we see this as a privilege, dear friends? It's a privilege. It's a gift that's been given to us. Are we utilizing this gift every day? Every day? Is it our dominating passion? Reflect on this. How can this become part of us, imbued within our very, fibers? The beloved guardians, just one mature soul with spiritual understanding and a profound knowledge of the faith can set a whole country ablaze. So great is the power of the cause to work through a pure and selfless channel. And again, the beloved guardian, this is from a letter dated 24 February 1950. He states that believers are entirely free to hold as many little teaching groups or firesides as they please in their own homes. In fact, this personal, informal home teaching is perhaps the most productive of results. So here the beloved guardian is saying firesides is perhaps the most productive teaching endeavor there is. Are we holding our firesides? Every one of us? Are we having firesides? This is the most effective form of teaching. And again, now this is where I have entitled my talk, The Cornerstone of the Foundation of All Baha'i Activity. And this is from a letter dated 3rd June 1952. The beloved guardian states, teaching is of course the head cornerstone of all Baha'i service. But successful teaching is dependent upon many factors. Now, so what is successful teaching dependent upon? This is from Shorefan. He says, one of which is the development of a true Baha'i way of living. So the development of a true Baha'i way of living and the fulfillment of responsibilities which we have incurred. So dear friends, are you developing your true Baha'i way of life? Working on your own inner self, purging all these vices that are within our hearts, eliminating them, purifying them, working towards this rectitude of conduct, this chaste and holy life, eliminating any forms of prejudice so that the standard, that other weapon, the freedom from racial prejudices, is part and parcel of our character. So this development of a true Baha'i way of living, as well as the fulfillment of responsibilities which we have incurred. So these are the other, these are the factors, the other factors that teaching is dependent upon. So how well that you develop your inner life. Excellent. And this again, dear friends, I'll read this extract from the beloved guardian. He says, the peoples generally are seeking the light of divine guidance. The peoples of the world are generally seeking the light of divine guidance. The problems of the world have awakened the populace, and we see this everywhere. The problems of the world have awakened the populace. It only remains for the Baha'is to raise the call and give the message, according to the high standards enunciated by the beloved Master. The world can become alive with the gifts of the Holy Spirit if the Baha'is fulfill their sacred obligation. Are you teaching, dear friends? Every day? Is this your dominating passion? Are you working on yourselves? Very good, dear friends. I have a few more extracts. I hope I'm not tiring you, dear friends. This is so invigorating, so exciting. So I'm going to share with you a few more. The guardian feels that the most effective way for the Baha'is to teach the faith is to make strong friends with their neighbors and associates. When the friends have confidence in the Baha'is and the Baha'is in their friends, they should give the message and teach the cause. Individual teaching of this type is more effective than any other type. The principle of the fireside meeting, which was established in order to permit and encourage the individual to teach in his own home, has been proven the most effective instrument for spreading the faith. So again here, dear friends, the beloved guardian is talking here about that the faith should be presented to our neighbors and associates, people that we know. When the friends have confidence in the Baha'is, and the Baha'is have confidence in their friends, they should present the faith. And we've talked about how they should be presented. Lovingly, truly, as a gift towards our friends, and tactfully. The friends, and then also talks here in the same extract about the fireside. So this is the second extract I've shared to you about the importance of the firesides. And it says the firesides here has proven the most effective instrument for spreading the faith. Are we having firesides? Are you teaching the cause? Let us go to this one. This is from the beloved guardian Shaykh Effendi, from a letter dated 20th of October 1956. It says, we must be careful not to teach in a fanatical way. This is so important, dear friends. So important. We should teach, this is Shaykh Effendi, we should teach as the Master taught. We should teach as the Master taught. He was the perfect exemplar of the teachings. He proclaimed the universal truths, and through love and wise demonstration of the universal verities of the faith, attracted the hearts and the minds. So how did he present the teachings? Here, the Shaykh Effendi says very clearly, he proclaimed the universal truths. Universal truths. He wasn't getting into the nitty-gritties, going into the history, starting off with Sheikh Ahmad, Sayyid Kazim, going through the history of the life and ministry of the Blessed Baha'u'llah, and Baha'u'llah was in Akka, and then Baha'u'llah, went and sent this tablet, and then there was this person named Abdul Baha, and Abdul Baha then came to America, and then he went to Europe, and then No, dear friends, he says, how should we teach? He proclaimed the universal truths. Universal truths. The oneness of humanity. Universal truths. So there will be no one would be able to question it. It is universally accepted. And this is how he says, through love and wise demonstration of these universal verities of the faith, attract the hearts and the minds. This is how we should present the faith, through these universal truths. But what is it very importantly says? We should teach as the Master taught. And how do we know how the Master taught? We need to study the talks of His Holiness Abdul Baha. Study the talks of His Holiness Abdul Baha. So important. Read them. Paris talks. Abdul Baha in London, promulgation of universal peace. Read them. How did it? Study them. Learn how he presents the faith. Okay, dear friends, I have one more extract from our dear beloved Shaykh Effendi, the beloved guardian of the faith, and then I will turn to the greatest teacher of the cause, Martha Root. Okay, I'm very excited. This is lifts my heart to read her story. So, one more last extract, and then we'll get into the story of Martha Root. This is from Shaykh Effendi. So, from a letter dated 21st September 1957. It is not enough for the friends to make the excuse that their best teachers and their exemplary believers have arisen and answered the call to pioneer. A best teacher and an exemplary believer is ultimately neither more nor less than an ordinary Baha'i who has consecrated himself to the work of the faith, deepened his knowledge and understanding of its teachings, placed his confidence in Baha'u'llah, and arisen to serve him to the best of his ability. This door is one which we are assured will open before the face of every follower of the faith who knocks hard enough so to speak. When the will and the desire are strong enough, the means will be found and the way opened, either to do more work locally, to go to a new goal town, or to enter the foreign pioneer field. The Baha'is are the leaven of God, which must leaven the lump of their nation. In direct ratio to their success will be the protection vouchsafed, not only to them, but to their country. These are the immutable laws of God, from which there is no escape. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required. So here, dear friends, in this extract we see a best teacher, an exemplary believer, is neither more nor less than an ordinary Baha'i. But what's the difference? He says, this best teacher or exemplary believer, as stated here, that individual has arisen to serve him to the best of his ability. They have deepened their knowledge and understanding of his teachings. They have consecrated themselves to the work of the faith and placed their whole confidence in His Holiness Baha'u'llah and arisen to serve him to the best of their ability. This is what is, as you know, in this extract, is the best teacher, exemplary believer. Any one of us can be this best teacher or exemplary believer. Very good. Now let us hear the story of Martha Root and be inspired, dear friends. Be inspired. I hope this extract, these talks, from these extracts I've shared from you from His Holiness Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, the beloved guardian, is inspiring your hearts, kindling the fire of love for His Holiness Baha'u'llah, and that you not only first and foremost will deepen and teach yourselves and then transform your inner lives and hearts, purge yourselves and purge your hearts from all of these vices and anything that comes between you and your Creator, and then open your mouths like that beautiful bird and sing the melodies of His Holiness Baha'u'llah and teach the cause. This is what I hope is inspiring you in this talk that I'm presenting to you on teaching the cause, the cornerstone of the foundation of all Baha'i activity. So dear friends, without any further ado, I'm going to now share with you the story of the life of Martha Root. In 1912, Martha Root had often attended talks by His Holiness Abdul Baha as he traveled in North America. She arranged for him to speak in Pittsburgh, where she lived. She even met with him, and listening to him filled Martha with longing to spread his message of love and unity. She was so eager that she wrote to him in 1918, suggesting she go on a world tour to share the Baha'i faith. His answer thrilled her. By 1919, at age 47, she was stuffing her bags with books and pamphlets to set off for South America. Oh, that I could travel, even though on foot and in the utmost poverty, to these regions, and raising the call of Ya Baha'u'llah Pa in cities, villages, mountains, deserts, and oceans, promote the divine teachings. This, alas, I cannot do. How intensely I deplore it. Please God, ye may achieve it. That call of His Holiness Abdul Baha in the tablets of the Divine Plan came to Martha Root daily. She said, as the very first to arise in response to his call, she traveled through South America in 1919. It was only the beginning of successive and continuous trips to which Martha gave the remaining 20 years of her life. She taught the faith on every continent and in over 400 universities throughout the world. Wherever she went, she spread information as widely as she could, arranging for translations of Baha'i books, giving booklets whenever she lectured, and to whomever she met, visiting what newspapers she could and sending articles to the rest, placing books in libraries, and writing home for more. She spoke for universities, women's groups, press societies, Esperantists and Theosophists, for socialist, religious, educational, and peace congresses, and over the radio. She enlisted the admiration of princes and presidents for the Baha'i teachings, and the allegiance of a queen. She was already middle-aged when she started journeys, small, frail, and often ill. Undaunted, she wrote back from South America that future Baha'i travelers should carry a thermometer and simple remedies. And from China she wrote, "I leave many things undone, and every day I lie down for 2 hours to get strength to do the most important work. I mean, in Shanghai, I have done this, and thus the strength has come. Abdul-Baha knows I have done my utmost. The test of the year is if the message has been spread in China. It isn't a question of health, or how much or how little work, but only if the Holy Spirit has poured over China. If some souls know Abdul-Baha. He told us not to be concerned about the harvest." Martha Root was not wealthy. She supported herself on her travels by writing articles for newspapers and magazines. While she was planning her trip to South America, the head of a newspaper syndicate based in New York met her at a fireside and asked her to sell him her articles from South America. She wrote Abdul-Baha of her intended trip to South America, and he answered her, "O thou enkindled with the fire of the love of God! Your detailed letter dated November 7th, 1918, was in these days received. The contents produced great joy, for they indicated a benevolent purpose, an untiring effort, and an unextended tour around the different parts of the globe. Today, the promulgation of the ideal principles of His Holiness Baha'u'llah, which are manifestly recorded in the books, is the spirit of this age and the cause of the realization of assistance and confirmation. Assuredly, whenever thou holdest fast to it, in whatever enterprise thou mayst engage, thou shalt find the doors of might and power flung open to thy face. My hope, from the blessings of His Holiness Baha'u'llah, is that thou mayst forget rest and composure, and like unto a swift flying bird, mayst cover long distances, and in whatever land thou tarriest, thou mayst reproduce the melody of the kingdom, and engage in songs and music in the best of tunes. As ears are awaiting the summons for universal peace, it is therefore advisable for thee to travel in case comfortable journey is possible to the different parts of the globe, and roar like unto a lion the kingdom of God. Wide-reaching consequences thou shalt witness, and extraordinary confirmations shall be exhibited unto thee. I very much desire that thou shouldst visit the Holy Land, and thus to meet thee. But teaching stands above everything else, and if thou deemest it advisable, engage thou in the spreading of it throughout the regions of the world." Interestingly, dear friends, His Holiness Baha'u'llah quotes Rumi in the Seven Valleys. In the seventh valley, the valley of true poverty and absolute nothingness. His Holiness Baha'u'llah states, O thou lion-hearted soul, even as a lion roar, that thy roaring may perchance to the seventh heaven soar. And we see that reference also here from His Holiness Abdul Baha in his letter to Martha Root, where he says, roar like unto a lion. In another tablet, His Holiness Abdul Baha wrote to her, Thou art indeed serving in the path of God, art with all thy energy showing love to others, art raising the call of the kingdom, and art illumining the hearts of men. Martha Root set sail July 22nd, 1919 for South America. The cruise required 2 weeks, and she knew she must somehow in that same time reach the other passengers. So she summoned up her courage and joined in the sports contest sponsored on the ship, admitting that she didn't know very much about sports. She also donated one of the prizes, a farewell gift she had received from one of the Baha'is. The next day, being the first Sunday at sea, she reported, Miss Root asked the captain's permission to speak in the evening on the Baha'i cause. The purser put a large notice on the bulletin board. No person aboard had heard of the Baha'i movement. The men on the sports committee were the first ones to enter the music room. They helped to make it popular, and everyone invited everyone else. Martha Root, an experienced journalist, went to the newspaper office after she landed in Brazil. Through news stories, she explained her purpose, as she would throughout her future travels. If anyone feels timid about asking opportunities to speak, she once said, remember that no day comes twice. Martha found plenty of opportunities. She gathered people into study classes and spoke to clubs, colleges, and community leaders. She once gave 25 talks in about a week. Yet speaking to crowds wasn't always easy. Once she suddenly felt nervous before a talk and ducked into the ladies' room. I get this way sometimes, Martha confessed to her companion. But no case of jitters could keep Martha from giving her message. She didn't try to impress others that she was important. She traveled and ate as cheaply as possible, spending little on herself. Martha Root spoke to crowds around the world. Her talks were simple and given with love. Her message went straight to listeners' hearts. They were touched by her warmth and the light in her eyes. At times her talks ended with the audience surrounding her. Martha Root proclaimed the faith in Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Peru, Panama, and Cuba, all without any knowledge of Spanish or Portuguese or any literature in those languages. None had been printed yet. She relied on sign language, showing her address on a slip of paper to policemen and streetcar conductors in Rio de Janeiro, pointing to Baha'i articles in the newspaper, flyers of a library there where she wanted to give books, or in what French she knew, giving the principles to newspaper editors in French so that they could print them in Spanish or Portuguese. In Pernambuco, Brazil, now Recife, she was fortunate in finding an interpreter. Hearing that there was an American businesswoman staying at one of the hotels, she went there, only to find that the woman was the cousin of Lua Getzinger. The woman, Mrs. Vegas, took Martha Root to the 5 newspaper offices in town and interpreted for her there. Miss Root was discouraged from going on to Bahia, Brazil, now Salvador, on the Bahia de Todos Santos, Bay of All Saints, because of reports of yellow fever there. It was feared that she might not be able to get out of a quarantine to leave again. But she remembered Abdu'l-Baha's injunction, "Visit ye especially Bahia, on the eastern shore of Brazil, because in the past years this city was christened with the name of Bahia. There is no doubt that it has been through the inspiration of God." So Martha Root went to the stateroom of her ship in perplexity, and threw herself down on the bunk. She looked through the porthole, and seeing Jupiter shining brightly, steady in its course, she rose up and ordered her bags taken ashore. Later, newly made friends in Buenos Aires tried to dissuade her from crossing the Andes in wintertime. But she was determined to travel up the western coast of South America in order to reach Panama, of which the Master had said, "The teachings once established there will unite the East and the West, the North and the South." Failing in their first effort, her friends plied her with gifts of books, flowers, fruits, candy, and lunches. Her hostess gave Martha her own heavy overcoat and long underwear, for despite Abdu'l-Baha's instructions that Martha travel in case comfortable journey is possible, the only way across the Andes then was by mule. We read her own description here. The trip by muleback over the top of the world was thrilling enough for the most sensational. To pray the greatest name among these minarets of God was to glimpse the glory of the eternal, unknowable. The ancient trail led 10,400 feet above sea level. The people on muleback were infinitesimal specks clinging to mighty terraces. They huddled on the edge of jagged peaks, frozen chasms, and stiffened mountain torrents. Fortunately, the sun shone brightly, and the acute cold was not so terrible as all had expected. A detour through one dark tunnel took over an hour, in stumbling, slipping blackness, in which the frightened mules shied and fell. Martha Root, as her mule plunged downward into the mouth of the tunnel, gripped the pommel, threw her body far back, closed her eyes, and prayed the Ya Allah al-Mustaghas for all, over and over again. In that black uncertainty, the clear, vibrant voice of the Italian girl would ring down the line of mules. "Mademoiselle, are you all right?" Later out from the tunnel, when the procession came to precipitous downward slopes toward Chile, Miss Root could not even see the 1-inch margin that had been promised, and so it was with great joy that she saw the men getting off their mules and walking further down the mountainside. She did the same, for the mules would sometimes slip a yard in their perpendicular path, and they were frightened too. Taking the guide's hand, they made the descent together, and when they could not walk, they could run. The warm sun had melted the crisp ice just enough that they could get a foothold. They stopped every few minutes to breathe, as one's breath is very short in this altitude. Some fainted, some had puna, which is bleeding of the eyes and nose and ears. Everything given Miss Root was passed along to those who needed. On the journey by ship up the western coast of South America, Martha's supply of 500 booklets, which she had brought with her, gave out, and she began to hand out newspapers and magazines containing articles which she had published. She was ill with grippe, influenza, and had to be the shadow to make one appreciate the sunshine. So the first few places are but memories of trying to get ashore to newspaper offices to explain the Baha'i message, then leaning against the friendly lampposts for strength to drag oneself back to the boat. She spent a week in Panama, and on the ship she recalled Abdu'l-Baha's admonition to roar like a lion, and again summoned up the courage to ask a ship's captain for permission to speak. Writing home about it, she said, "If anyone feels timid about asking opportunities to speak, let him remember that no day comes twice to any servant in the cause." When Martha Root returned from South America, Abdu'l-Baha wrote her, "Thou art in truth a herald of the kingdom and a harbinger of the covenant. Thou art truly self-sacrificing. Thou showest kindness unto all nations. Thou art sowing a seed that shall in due time give rise to thousands of harvests. Thou art planting a tree that shall eternally put forth leaves and blossoms, and yield fruits, and whose shadow shall day by day grow in magnitude." His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha also wrote, "Praise be to God, the call of the kingdom hath been received in South America, and the seeds of guidance have been sown in those cities and regions. Certainly the heat of the sun of reality, the rain of the eternal bounty, and the breeze of the love of God will make them germinate. Have confidence." Martha Root rested from her 9-month trip by helping to edit The Star of the West and by travel teaching in the United States and Mexico. Her second great journey was to China, responding to Abdu'l-Baha's eloquent appeal. "China, China, Chinaward, the cause of Baha'u'llah must march." Where is that holy sanctified Baha'i to become the teacher of China? China has most great capability. The Chinese people are most simple-hearted and truth-seeking. The Baha'i teacher of the Chinese people must first be imbued with their spirit, know their sacred literature, study their national customs, and speak to them from their own standpoint and their own terminologies. He must entertain no thought of his own, but ever think of their spiritual welfare. In China, one can teach many souls and train and educate such divine personages that each one of them may become the bright candle of the world of humanity. Truly, I say, the Chinese are free from any deceit and hypocrisies and are prompted with ideal motives. Had I been feeling well, I would have taken a journey to China myself. Martha Root felt compelled to try to carry the message to all the places where Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha themselves could not go. From China, she wrote, "If Christ could have lived and traveled, if Baha'u'llah could have been free to visit all countries, if Abdu'l-Baha could have come to China and to Indochina, how great would have been the results. Man in his ignorance and blind prejudices prevented them. Now the only way the most great peace can come is for their faithful disciples and the disciples of all the other world teachers to take these universal Baha'i principles for world peace and carry them to every land." Martha Root stopped first to visit Agnes Alexander and Ida Finch in Japan, where she gave 20 lectures. Then she spent 6 months in Peking studying the language and customs of the people, supporting herself by writing for a news syndicate and giving private English lessons. The beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi sent her a cable her first week in China saying, "Abdu'l-Baha guiding you. Success assured. Shoghi." After summering in Peking, Martha Root debated with herself whether to teach English in a university there, which would have given her more security financially, or to travel teach. Finally, she decided on the latter and received a cable of confirmation from Shoghi Effendi. She traveled southward from Peking to Shanghai, visiting the cities between as she went. She was ill and unable to get out much when she first arrived in Shanghai, so she spent her time writing newspaper articles. Later, as the articles began to appear in the papers, she was able to get speaking engagements easily, so she felt that her illness had brought good results. Writing, "Oh, Abdul-Baha has blessed every move, and I'm so grateful today." That day she wrote 9 newspapers were carrying Baha'i articles, but she had neither time nor money to go out and buy them all, as some cost 20 cents a copy. In March, though ill with the flu, then called the grippe, she determined to make a teaching trip upriver to Hangzhou and Wuchang in the interior of China. I arose about 5 to take the boat next morning from Nanking, waited in a cold rain for an hour for the rickshaw, then waited 7 hours for the boat in a place with nothing but a roof over, no sides. When the boat came, it had no fires, no bed. We were supposed to take beds. There was only one foreigner, a Russian young man, aboard. I said I could not go, so ill, he said. Try it, and I went. It rained every minute of the trip for those 3 days. When I reached Hangzhou, my arms were so numb I could not hold the fork or eat or write, and my temperature would frighten anyone not a Baha'i. I went right to bed and stayed in bed 2 days, except getting up every little while to take exercises to conquer the numbness. I prayed Abdul-Baha to heal me, and he did, and then wonderful things happened. The syndicate articles written in Peking and sent out by the Asiatic news agency for whom I had worked last summer had penetrated this heart of China. One Esperantist to whom I had written came to call and said, "Your name is not a stranger to Wuchang," and he showed me the clipping from the Hankow papers of last summer about the Baha'i cause, and it had been much studied and underlined. He was a prepared soul and was my truest friend. He was teaching economics in National Commercial College of Wuchang, 250 students. I lectured there, and he arranged for me to speak in Wuchang University, 1,600 students, and the president also sent out written invitations to the girls' normal college and to the YMCA. By the time Martha Root left China, she had taught in 19 of the principal cities and in nearly 100 universities, colleges, and schools. She wrote back encouraging others to come, to correspond with Chinese or to teach the Chinese in America, saying, "It is a favor and a bounty of God to have the privilege to do anything for China. I do not think one of you will ever come who will not love the Chinese people." She left China for Saigon and visited the newspaper, the library, and 19 schools, societies, or individuals in the short stay of 5 days, stopping briefly again in China and Japan. She proceeded to Australia and New Zealand for a 4-month teaching trip. There she traveled with Effie Baker, Catherine McCoffin, and Greta Lamprell, broadcasting from every large radio station and giving lectures, more than 60 of them in Adelaide, Melbourne, and Sydney, speaking 2, 3, 4, and occasionally 5 times a day. She stopped in South Africa and speaking, and spent a month in Haifa before proceeding to Europe, scene of her most important endeavor. Martha Root's most momentous service was performed during her first tour of Europe in the 4 years from 1926 through 1929. There she visited at least 15 countries by present boundaries and attended 4 annual Universal Esperanto Congresses in Edinburgh, Danzig, Antwerp, and Budapest, as well as 7 other international conferences and the session of the League of Nations. She had extensive lecture tours in Great Britain and in Germany, visiting twice every German university but 2. A great part of her time was spent in the Balkans, where she visited every country and where she had the first 4 of those 8 successive interviews with Queen Marie of Romania, which Shogheh Effendi proclaimed as the most outstanding feature of those memorable journeys. Martha Root presented Esselmont's Baha'u'llah and the New Era to Queen Marie at the palace in Bucharest, only to be recalled the next day for an audience in which she found out that the Queen had stayed up all night reading the book and accepted all. Blessed be the King, proclaims Baha'u'llah, whose sovereignty hath withheld him not from his sovereign, and who hath turned unto God with his heart. So far, Marie, granddaughter of Queen Victoria, alone among royalty, has had the courage and detachment to give homage to the sovereign of the age. The beloved guardian Shogheh Effendi stressed the importance of what Martha Root had done. Of all the services rendered the cause of Baha'u'llah by this star servant of his faith, the most superb and by far the most momentous has been the almost instantaneous response evoked in Queen Marie of Romania to the message which that ardent and audacious pioneer had carried to her during one of the darkest moments of her life, an hour of bitter need, perplexity, and sorrow. It came, she herself in a letter had testified, as all great messages come, at an hour of dire grief and inner conflict and distress, so the seed sank deeply. Queen Marie herself proclaimed the cause through open letters to Canadian and American newspapers, writing in the Toronto Star, "It is a wondrous message that Baha'u'llah and his son Abdul-Baha have given us. Love, the mainspring of every energy, tolerance towards each other, desire of understanding each other, knowing each other, helping each other, forgiving each other. It is Christ's message, taken up anew, in the same words almost, but adapted to the 1,000 years and more difference that lies between the year 1 and today. If ever the name of Baha'u'llah or Abdul-Baha comes to your attention, do not put their writings from you. Search out their books, and let their glorious, peace-bringing, love-creating words and lessons sink into your hearts as they have into mine. Seek them and be the happier." The following year, Queen Marie's husband, King Ferdinand, died, and when Martha Root called on her second interview, the Queen and her daughter, Princess Ileana, had been reading Baha'u'llah's words in the Iran about life after death. In subsequent interviews, Queen Marie gave Martha Root written appreciations, used as frontispieces of the Baha'i World volumes, and a diamond and pearl brooch now in the International Archives building in Haifa. Princess Ileana translated a Baha'i pamphlet into Romanian and saw to its printing. Martha Root spoke of Queen Marie as being beautiful, as a queen should be. Indeed, in her articles, she had nothing but kind words for everyone she met, writing with love and respect of the heads of state, professors and other notables whom she met in Europe and Asia. President Masaryk, founder of Czechoslovakia, she described as a psychologist of peace, born into this world to be a statesman. Dr. Joseph Krzyzinski, president of Lublin University, who had visited Abdul Baha as a young priest, and was the first to write of the faith in Polish. She found a tall, handsome, scholarly, kindly, interesting man, with eyes full of light. Their words and those of others Martha met on this trip, Doctors August Forel, Edmund Privat, and Charles Baudouin of Switzerland, Prince Paul and Princess Olga of Yugoslavia, and Professor Bogdan Popovich of that country, Dr. Rustam Vamberi of Hungary, Edward Benz, foreign minister and later president of Czechoslovakia, King Faisal of Iraq, notables of Turkey, Egypt, India, and Japan, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, founder of modern China, and Dr. Y.S. Sao, president of Tsinghua University, can be found in the Baha'i world. Small wonder that the noted people she interviewed with such interest and enthusiasm were able to speak appreciatively of the Baha'i faith. They had her for an example. Doris Mackay, who knew her, wrote that whoever you were, her loving interest was her introduction to you. There was no one, high or low, who had not felt that. There was a quiet stateliness in her manner, an element of ceremony. Make every meeting an occasion, she instructed me. Give something always, if only a flower, some candy or fruit. Pray that they will accept from you the greater gift. After her years in Europe, Martha Root took the long way home by way of Turkey, Egypt, a month in Haifa as a guest of Shoghi Effendi, Damascus, Iraq, 5 months in Iran, where she visited the friends and places of Baha'i martyrdom, 2.5 months in India and Burma, Malaya, China, Japan, and Hawaii. The National Spiritual Assembly of Iran wrote with appreciation of the effect of Martha Root's visit on the believers. People who, as proved by history, looked down upon foreigners with enmity and bitterness, and considered association with them as contrary to religion, now, thanks to Baha'u'llah's teachings, shed tears of joy at the sight of their American sister. That letter also remarked on the eagerness with which friends rushed to meet her. They took her to the tomb of the Vargas and the home of Tahireh, and she in turn recorded for the Western believers the beautiful story of the Varga family in White Roses of Persia, and began work on her book of the life of Tahireh. Martha spent a year in the United States traveling from the Pacific to the Atlantic, lecturing daily as she went. Then, in January of 1932, Martha Root set sail for his second tour of Europe, staying there another 4 years. She spent 3 months in Geneva for the Disarmament Conference and the extraordinary session of the League of Nations, meeting personally the statesmen of over 50 nations. After that, she concentrated chiefly on Northern and Eastern Europe, where she placed articles in more than 100 periodicals. Her efforts extended all the way to Latvia. She arranged for the publication of Baha'u'llah and the New Era in Romanian, Greek, and Finnish, and of a booklet, What is the Baha'i Movement, in Romanian, Finnish, and Icelandic. She spoke on the radio and once again had interviews with notables and royalty, including an audience with King Haakon of Norway. She attended Esperanto congresses, again on this trip, often in the company of Lydia Zamenhof. For the Baha'is of the West, she wrote of her pilgrimage to Adrianople, a pilgrimage in which she searched for and found the houses of Baha'u'llah had lived in and the people who had known him. The American National Spiritual Assembly wrote, "With what tenderness our hearts follow her on her journey of October 1933 to Adrianople, where the Blessed Perfection had planted a seed under every stone. Through her we are welcomed by the governor and mayor. With her we kneel reverently in the Moradiyeh Mosque and sense how far Baha'u'llah had come to meet our Western world. Through her eyes, many times, tear-dimmed in that city, we see the gentle Mustafa Big, who had been in the presence of the Beloved, and was able to tell us of his gardens, his house, his great generosity, and of the reverent esteem of his fellow citizens." The history of the Baha'i faith in Iceland, like that of so many countries, begins with Martha Root's lecture tour there, July to August of 1935. Martha told of being introduced on this street to a school principal who had read her article, "What is the Baha'i Movement?" in the newspaper. He invited us to come with him to his home to coffee, as is the delightful custom in Iceland. We went, and after a long conversation about the Baha'i teachings, just as we were about to go, he asked, "Tell me, do you believe in dreams?" The writer replied, "Yes, that Baha'u'llah had said there may be many mysteries and wisdoms in dreams. Even there are occasions where it may happen that one witnesses outwardly in the world of time exactly the thing he had seen in his dream." "Well," said the host, "last night I had dreamed that a bird came into this room and, resting on the sofa, sang such a beautiful melody. I was so happy. This morning I said to myself, 'Who will come?' Then I met you in the street. You come with your friend Holmfridur to our house, and you have taken the seat on the sofa where the bird came and sang the melody." He was one of the great souls of Iceland. Martha Root was sent back to the United States in the middle of the following year by the Guardian. Her health was broken, and he told her to rest. She stayed 2 months with the Wilhelms, recuperating, then began lecturing across the United States, but with a lighter schedule than on the previous tour. Martha Root left San Francisco, May 20th, 1937, on her last earthly journey. She went first to Japan, where she taught 1 month. She next landed in Shanghai, but the Japanese bombardment of that city made it too dangerous to stay. Her next stop was the Philippines, where an earthquake immediately after her arrival destroyed in fire all the clothes she had brought. 3 months of teaching in the Philippines were followed by a month in Ceylon. Then, in October, Martha arrived in India for a 15-month stay, where she lectured from Bombay to Mandalay and from Srinagar to Colombo. Her lecture topics varied. What is culture? How may we work for universal peace? New solution of the economic problem. But she noted every lecture in India has been a Baha'i lecture. Whatever the subject, the theme is always one: the teachings of the Baha'i faith. She visited Rabindranath Tagore and met with the Prime Minister of India. More than 200 newspaper articles appeared during her stay in India and Ceylon. She traveled through southern India in the company of Shirin Fozdar, who sang songs of Qurat al-Ain, Tahireh. In Rangoon, she met with the Baha'i children and gave them the first lesson in a Baha'i class which the Rangoon Spiritual Assembly determined to continue in remembrance of her visit. She spent 3 months in Karachi arranging for the publishing and printing of her book, Tahireh the Pure, Iran's Greatest Women. Martha Root was inspired by the heroic selflessness of Tahireh, whom she described as the first woman suffrage martyr, and as to this day our living, thrilling teacher. Sometimes I have asked myself, Martha Root had said musing upon the life of Tahireh, was Tahireh great enough instantly to say, "O God, I give my life to establish this faith among mankind," or did she too need to be trained by the infinite God to long to give her life as a martyr to serve this new religion? At the end of Martha's journey through those areas which are now separated as India, Pakistan, and Burma, the National Spiritual Assembly Secretary wrote, "Miss Martha Root has opened the whole of India to us, and it now devolves upon us to utilize these openings and produce the best of results." Her last lecture tour was through Australia and New Zealand. She was in poor health and weakened as she went along, but she continued determinedly, giving her last ounce of strength. Her report to the American Baha'is describes her teaching method. She said that she had a few firesides, but I could not do as much as I wished because the program was so full, and when one is going to give a lecture, it is important to study, concentrate, meditate. For example, the day I was to speak in the big theater, I kept with my subject all day. I read, I thought, and I sent my mind once through a lecture of 45 minutes. At 5 p.m., I jotted down an outline of 5 points. When I spoke that night, I did not look at the outline, and I did not say exactly what I had thought out in the day. We have to see our audience before we know what we are going to say. We as Baha'is should prepare and be ready. Sometimes I know we cannot, because we are so interrupted, and then Baha'u'llah helps us just the same. Tout we should study and know well all the teachings. She wrote her report when very ill. Just the day before leaving Auckland, she recalled in her letter the lecture she gave on scientific proofs of life after death. "Perhaps I could never give it like that again," she wrote, "but it thrilled me. The teachings, the proofs, are such a spiritual security. I think I love that lecture most of all." The hall was crowded. Many stood, some even standing in the outer hall where they could hear but could not see. Many of them had lost loved ones, and they came to find truth and comfort. Despite her illness, she had loved being with the friends and ended her report. "And now that I am leaving, May 29th on the Mariposa, it will be very difficult to say farewell. But if not, in New Zealand, we shall go again, do spiritual skylarking together in the heavenly realms." As the guardian testified, neither age nor ill health, neither the paucity of literature which hampered her earthly and early efforts, nor the meager resources which imposed an added burden on her labors, neither the extremities of the climates to which she was exposed, nor the political disturbances which she encountered in the course of her journeys, could damp the zeal or deflect the purpose of this spiritually dynamic and saintly woman. Single-handed and on more than one occasion, in extremely perilous circumstances, she continued to call in clarion tones men of diverse creeds, color, and classes to the message of Baha'u'llah, until while, in spite of a deadly and painful disease, the onslaught of which she endured with heroic fortitude, she hastened homeward to help in the recently launched 7-year plan. She was stricken down on her way in far-off Honolulu. 2 Baha'is on board the Mariposa took care of her, and when the ship reached Honolulu, took her to the home of a Baha'i, where she spent her last months, passing away on September 28, 1939, at age 67, in that symbolic spot meeting place of East and West. The Guardian wrote to the American believers, "The passing of dearest Martha and the circumstances of her severe and painful illness have brought profound sorrow, but I rejoice at the glory and joy that must be hers and which she fully deserves in the Abha paradise." Martha circled the globe 4 times, studying new languages and speaking before audiences more educated and powerful than herself. The beloved Guardian Shaykh Effendi said that her efforts were the nearest approach to the example set by Abdul Baha himself in the course of his journeys throughout the West. In a cable, he announced, "Posterity will establish her as the foremost hand which Abdul Baha's will has raised up in the first Baha'i century. Present generation of her fellow believers recognize her to be the first, finest fruit which the formative age of the faith of Baha'u'llah has as yet produced." And in God Passes By, the beloved Guardian's history of the first Baha'i century, he describes the American Baha'i community as crowned with imperishable glory by these signal international services of Martha Root. She had, he said, outshone the feats accomplished by any of the propagators of the faith in the course of an entire century. Thus, his tribute to Martha Root, that archetype of Baha'i itinerant teachers and the foremost hand raised by Baha'u'llah since Abdul Baha's passing, must be awarded if her manifold services and the supreme act of her life are to be correctly appraised, the title of leading ambassadress of his faith and pride of Baha'i teachers, whether men or women, in both the East and the West. She was our sister, Martha. Thank you very much, dear friends. It has been a pleasure being with you today. Thank you.